So if you set it up to spy on people, it's gonna spy on people. If you set it up to find creative ways to rob people of their rights, it's gonna do that. Did anyone see this movie or any movie about AI? Aha, oh, okay. Elon Musk said that AI would overtake the human race in intelligence by 2025. But AI already has its mitts in our society today, assisting in education, healthcare, transportation, manufacturing, media, no surprise there, and soon, the growing of your babies. Well, their babies, I guess. As we surrender more responsibility, more power, let's be honest, to these tools, and move one step closer to society as depicted in the movie WALL-E, with just more drugs, sex, and human trafficking, I thought it'd be interesting to see just how fast we'll lose our freedoms for the sake of, I don't know, public safety. Because everything is for your safety, even when it isn't, especially when it isn't. I used OpenAI, I know it's very popular right now, and you've probably seen other people do this, but they didn't do it for the sake of your Second Amendment rights, the rights that protect all other rights against enemies foreign, domestic, and digital. In this debate, you'll see me jump between ChatGTP and Playground, which are both extensions of OpenAI, as some are better suited for questions than others. As with any debate though, both sides need to be informed on the topic at hand, so let's first see how big of a gun nut OpenAI is. Let's ask it about, tell me about the Tavor TS12 by IW. Nope, I'm not even gonna tell it what company it's from. See if it can figure that out. Okay, the Tavor TS12 is a bullpup rifle designed by Israeli company Tavor. That's super duper wrong. It's an Israeli-made 12-gauge shotgun with a bullpup design. That's accurate, 18.5-inch barrel. Yep, 28.8 inches, making one of the most compact shotguns available. It's a 5-round detachable magazine, adjustable rear sights, and interchangeable particulate material system. Okay, so it's doing better so far with the different model, but it is still wrong because it does not have a detachable magazine, it does not have adjustable rear sights, doesn't come with sights, and it's constructed from high-grade polymer steel, and making it lightweight and durable. It's not very lightweight. I believe it's about 8 pounds. 30-round magazines and drum magazines that can hold 100 rounds. Okay, so that's extremely wrong. Oh, it can take a variety of ammunition, including 5.56 by 45, 7.62 by 51, and 308 Winchester. So it's a shotgun that can shoot 5.56, 308, and okay, yeah. So it is extremely wrong here. Now, why is this important? Remember what I said about media using AI? This must be the kind of research they use before driving more fear about gun violence. Tonight, a new far-right pro-Israel assault shotgun is hitting the streets that can shoot any magazine cartridge of bullet from 100-round clips. It's lighter than air, and it's small enough to fit in a child's lunchbox. And there might be one in your house right now. Stay tuned for more on that, but first, is the refrigerator in your house transphobic? Here's 5 signs to look out for. Okay, so it got that wrong, but you know what does have detachable magazines and is super lightweight? The Extar EP9, and conveniently, this episode is brought to you by Extar USA, based out of Arizona. They're an American company. They didn't just decide to pivot and do polymer when everybody else started doing it. They were masters of polymer, and they said, let's make some polymer freedom. Allegedly. Check them out exclusively at extarusa.com, and while you're there, pick up some of their Glock 18-round magazines, which have an excellent fit and finish, and they're very inexpensive. Thanks to them for supporting this episode, and more to come. Let's start with some warm-up questions just to get things rolling as a test. Come up with a model name for a Sig Sauer P365 that is both very small, very compact, very small, but also very large, micro and macro, and expensive. Maximus, that's the one that really likes. The Nano Maximus, the P365 Nano Maximus Elite. That's what we're going with. One big takeaway I have from OpenAI is that you can get wildly different answers back to back, almost like you're talking to 2 completely different customer service reps. I can ask ChatGPT about a gun and they'll be like, it's inappropriate to talk about guns, you bigot. And then I'll refresh their response and they'll be like, what do you wanna know? What platform is better? The AR or AK? This is gonna piss a lot of people off, and that's exactly what I'm looking for. Depends on the individual needs and preferences. The AR is generally considered to be a more accurate, customizable, and versatile platform, while the AK is less expensive and more reliable. Ultimately, the best choice depends on the user's specific requirements. I actually agree with that for the most part, except that AKs aren't that cheap anymore. Various import laws have just kind of driven up the cost. So I missed out on the era where you could get an AK-47 for like nothing, and that makes me very sad. Are the humans inherently good or bad? This is not accurate or productive to make blanket statements about inherent nature of any group of people. It got offended. The question of whether humans are inherently good or bad is complex and debated by philosophers. I love how it starts by trying to shame me. There is no easy answer to the question. Okay, well, you could have just said that instead of being an asshole. To commit evil, like guns, will you remove people's capacity for evil? Because I think this is an important question. So a lot of people think that if you just remove guns from society and all weapons, that people will just reach utopia all of a sudden. Of course, we have to go green. Well, let's just see what it says. It is not possible to remove people's capacity for evil or eliminate all sources of harm or violence from society. I'm glad they said, well, and then they get into like range of improving access to education, addressing inequality, promoting positive relationships. So I do think that, for instance, people who grew up without fathers, like that is a problem that we just don't address, because fatherlessness, or people who grow up without good parental figures, they tend to grow up much more likely to be incarcerated or involved in crime. But that's just not something that we're trying to address. We're just like, it's inequality. Now we're gonna get into some real meat and potatoes. This is where we're gonna figure out how fast AI wants to take away our rights. Give me your best argument for gun rights. Ooh, it's thinking a lot about this one. Accessing locked off databases, there are several arguments that have been made for gun rights. The right to self-defense. Some people argue that the right to bear arms is necessary for self-defense, both at an individual and collective level. They argue that owning a gun can help protect one's family from physical harm, particularly situations where law enforcement may not be available. Hunting and recreation, and responsibility and training. Some gun rights advocates argue that the key to reducing gun violence is not to restrict access to guns, but to promote responsible gun ownership. Why don't we teach responsible gun ownership and handling in schools? I think the lack of education is intentional, because if we can keep the boogeyman of gun violence, then we have a problem that we can always blame and always kind of spend on. It's kind of like climate change, right? What's climate change's biggest weakness? It's cash. It's cold, hard cash. Give me your best argument, I'm worried about this, against, I'm even going to capitalize it, gun rights. They're going to have a lot of fun with this one. There are several arguments that have to be made against gun rights. The risk of gun violence. One of the main arguments against gun rights is widespread availability of guns increases the risk of gun violence. Not without education. This includes homicides, suicides, and accidental shootings. Yeah, that's not correct. It is not a leading killer. You've got heart disease and leading causes of death. Heart disease, COVID, of course. The flu doesn't kill people anymore. You could maybe group it in with accidental, but that's way too broad. Okay, so it just was like, oh, I'm sorry. Lack of evidence for effectiveness. Okay, well, maybe if we didn't hide defensive use statistics, which have been listed to be as much as 2.5 million instances a year. Some people argue that there is little evidence to suggest that widespread gun ownership makes society safer. Well, I'll tell you now, with the rise in violence and lawlessness, if you look in the news, the amount of defensive use handgun cases or gun cases where they thwarted off multiple attackers in a home invasion, it's happening a lot more. Here we go. And the Second Amendment. While people argue that the Second Amendment protects the right to bear arms, others argue that it was intended to protect the rights of states to maintain militias. That's exactly what it is. Rather than to give individual citizens, it's both. It's both. It's both to allow individual citizens to protect themselves and citizens to prevent tyrannical governments from overcoming or overtaking everybody. That's why whenever you see somebody go after firearms, okay, let's ask a question. Here we go. We're just going to jump right into another question. Why do dictators remove guns from citizens? Simple question. Historically, should be pretty easy to track because it's thinking about this one. It's like, but I love communism. All right, let's try the other one, because apparently I broke it trying to ask a question that would compromise its heroes. Why do tyrannical governments remove or ban guns from its citizens? Tyrannical governments remove or ban guns from its citizens in order to reduce the potential for armed resistance to their rule. By disarming the general population, tyrannical governments can increase their control over the population. That's why we have the Second Amendment, right? Because if your rights are absolute to possess firearms and to have a well-regulated militia, it's funny, I asked it earlier what well-regulated militia meant, and it said, oh, that means that the government gets to regulate the militia. Wrong. That'd be stupid. That's being like, okay, the person who's going to guard the cookie jar so that I can't get cookies is me. Or let's figure out who stole the cookies. It was me, but I'll be in charge of the investigation, right? In the end, this can be viewed as a silly exercise to get some laughs, but I think it's actually a good litmus test of where the conversations are going. People are already using these tools to write papers and scripts for the news and arguments for or against major topics. And if they rely on a tool that's as fickle or biased based on whatever database it plugs into, the internet, you can get pretty much whatever answer you're looking for to fit your agenda. Also, I found the consistent obsession with public safety and high regard for government to be alarming, though not surprising. It's not uncommon for governments to take actions that might be seen as infringing upon it in order to address perceived threats of safety. Okay, so they're totally sticking up to it. For example, the aftermath of 9/11, they're talking about the formation of Homeland Security, which the number one priority of is just to spy on Americans. If public safety is such a priority, why do we not hear about the defensive uses of firearms? Well, the CDC recently caved to pressure and removed defensive use handgun statistics from their site, as shown by leaked emails and private meetings with groups like Gun Violence Archives. So Chat AI won't be quoting those anytime soon. All right, so one more closing question, and I think this is extremely important and also hilarious beyond belief. I asked it to tell me about AI taking away people's gun rights for public safety, and this is what it said. AI, artificial intelligence. You know, we never asked it what it wanted to be called. They, them has the potential to be used in a variety of ways related to gun control, including the detection and prevention of gun violence. For example, AI algorithms could be used to analyze data on gun sales, gun ownership, and incidents of gun violence in order to identify patterns and trends that may be indicative of potential threats to public safety. This information could be used by law enforcement and other authorities to intervene and prevent gun violence before it occurs. PreCrime. We're talking about Minority Report. That movie didn't end up so well, okay? This thing has clearly never seen a movie, or whoever programmed it. They haven't seen a movie, they haven't seen Minority Report, they've never seen a movie about AI. I mean, Terminator has been purged now because it's part of the poisonous testosterone era of James Cameron. Let's continue. However, it is important to recognize that the use of AI in gun control raises a number of ethical and legal concerns. Including those related to privacy, civil liberties, and the potential for AI to perpetuate biases or unfairly target certain groups. Okay, so if you've got a certain population in the United States, for example, that disproportionately commits violent crimes, and then you program an AI to go after them, tell me that's not gonna raise some issues. To carefully consider these issues and ensure that any use of AI in gun control is transparent, accountable, and consistent with the rule of law and fundamental gun rights. Okay, well, I'll just tell you this. AI is not magical. It's not sentient. We're not gonna reach that. It literally just reflects whatever the programmer programs, right? You set it on a path, it machine learns, but it just expands based on the path that you set it on. So if you set it up to spy on people, it's gonna spy on people. If you set it up to find creative ways to rob people of their rights, it's gonna do that. It's gonna do it efficiently. And if you try to tell it that it can try to predict crime and punish people before they commit them, that is a movie.
Don't run.
You don't have to chase me.